Hey everybody, BTO Pro here. Today I'm going to be talking about Swagger. No, I don't have Swagger particularly. As you can see in the webcam thing here, I've been a little laid up because of my broken ankle. But I'm talking about the API documentation standard tool called Swagger. So if you've been to swagger.io, very nice, very complicated looking website. Like, what the heck is this, right? But it's a way of documenting APIs. Now, bear with me here. It's an API for APIs. So why do you care? Well, you care because of the awesome tool sets that are available as a result of having an API for the structure of communicating APIs. So this is a standard called the Open API. Here you can see I'm operating under 3.0.0, and I've got a little document here that says HAXcms API. So the awesome thing about Swagger, and why I'm showing this right now, is I have HAXcms version 1, but it says 12.3, but what will be in version 1.0.0 is self-documenting via Swagger. So what you get via that, and let's look real quick at what that does. So this is HAXcms. So I could make a new site, my new site, and after I make a new site, I can go to it, and you can save pages, whatever, right? What else? So the important thing though is not like, hey, there's this editor, and do that in other videos, is what's going on with version 1.0 is if we look in the network tab here and we look at XHR, so that's like your AJAX requests. Let's see what happened when I actually did that. So let's go execute another save. So when I hit save, it actually calls out to an endpoint here. You can see it says save node. And it might be a little small, but that says system/API/save node. So one of the big deals with version 1, why we're marking it version 1 instead of just a point release, is it has a unified API backend now. And in order to have a unified API backend, you need to have documentation in order to operate off of that. So you can see I can look at the preview response, see what data was sent in the payload here, and you can see it's sending along a JSON web token and another little dealy there. So there we go, site and node, and it's got some additional information under there. So what Swagger does and what OpenAPI spec does is this data is there regardless, right? So if something had to happen, developers had to put in place a thing where you click edit and you've got the user interface. But then you need to be able to graph that to a backend. It needs to store somewhere, and it has to send in a very specific way. So what we're able to do now via our API, and I said it's unified, and we didn't have this previously, is if I go to this location, you can go to this in any HAXcms site now, it's not going to do anything. It's going to throw a message that says, hey, invalid token. And that's because I haven't called the API the right way. However, if I go back to just API, it's going to generate what looks like a mess. Now, I can make that kick out in a nicer format if I go to OpenAPI/JSON. And actually, you know what? That still looks like a mess there. So let's go to just API, and then we're going to view source. And view source, and you'll see it. This is it looks nicer here because the browser doesn't want to do it that way. But this is in a format called YAML. And YAML is short for yet another markup language. Pretty trolly on the part of developers. Can't imagine there's a lot of those out there. So what you're looking at, though, is an expression of the API for HAXcms. So, for example, if I search for save node, I can see that save node requires data to be posted. It's tagged in a certain way so that other people can find it. And here's the parameters that need to go into it. So it needs a JSON web token, and it also needs it needs that to be gotten by login. I haven't fully documented save node, but I have documented create site. Yes, create site. So what you'll see is we've got post. It's got an operation, so it knows, hey, if you're a developer, look in this file and you'll find the function in question that powers this. So it requires a JSON web token, and then you also need to send, and this is for creating a site, you need to send site and node. And here's an example. So you can send site, new name, variables for learn to theme and whatnot. So that's a better example. Let's go to that one. So where that API call is happening is on that very first portion. So if I open up network, do XHR, and we can see this now. We do hey API call. So when I create a new site, you'll see it hits create new site or create a site. And now in here, if I search for API call, it's there. So where does Swagger come into play? Why do we care about this? So if I go to our little API viewer and we search here for create site, you'll see that it's got all the documentation here that we need in order to actually go and use this call. In fact, it's interactive. You can even do like try it out. You can plug in these values. If I have a JSON web token, which I'll steal one from here, we can see how we can make that call. All right, so I'm going to steal this JSON web token, dump it into our editor. And I'm going to, instead of my new site, let's do this is from CLI. We'll hit execute. So it's not actually going to make the call, but it will give me a full documented curl statement, which is something a developer can use. So I can just copy this. I can open up a terminal window and paste that in. And that just made a new site. And how do I know it made a new site? Is if I go back to my site here. What did we call that? This is from CLI. There it is right there, CLI. And I will minimize this window. You can see this is from CLI. That site didn't exist a second ago. Let's go and call it again, right? I can just keep calling this up and hammering it, and it's going to make a new one every single time because it's just executing the same thing on command line that I'm able to do via this nice happy GUI. So what Swagger's doing is it's documenting this API so that other developers can pick this up and build on top of it, understand the way that you're supposed to send data. This is a critical piece of infrastructure if we're ever to get a desktop app, which we might be working on. Or if, let's say, we wanted to have a Go or Node based backend as opposed to a PHP-driven one, which is what we have now. So where that little API comes from, to wrap up, it's a single file here. It's called operations.php. And you can see that I've defined my tags. I've defined what the metadata for the site is. And then I go through and say, hey, you can post to path options, and you should get a 200 response. And it just has a little description, right? And / hey, make the open API. And so, in fact, when I went to that path before that was open API / JSON, what's happening there is it's actually calling some functions on PHP side that reads this file itself dynamically and then generates the documentation from it. So if I were to change this to say API documentation JSON to something else right now and hit save, and then we go back to the site, we view source on this, there's something else right now. So that is live updating based on the API data coming in. So I hope this is an interesting little demonstration of Swagger, where we're going with our APIs in HAXcms version 1. Still got some cleanup to do. I've been laid up a little bit because of the foot, unfortunately, as far as timing, but it has allowed me to drill in and focus on some of these really critical pieces of backend infrastructure so that we can start to get more and more robust in our integrations. You'll see right now we have PHP there and starting to hash out what a backend that's Node.js based would look like for a desktop app, still within the same application. So your HAXcms sites, the whole point of them is to be headless and decoupled from architecture. They will be able to run whether it's on a static HTML server or on a PHP-based server or soon on an Express Node.js type of server. Thanks for checking out today. I hope to put out a couple more videos in the near future just because I've got a backlog of them, need to practice talking to you. See ya.